ways to think about it, but when you're not able to move and breathe as easily, there's a lot of things to make sure that your whole body is breathing. Like, why is there a lifted chest? What's the importance of earth when you're breathing? How are your bones? What's the alignment? How do you make sure that, so everyone drop your chest for a second and then lift your chest. And you notice how your presence in your body changes without the effort of it, right? Like you actually feel more of your inner being when you lift your chest a little bit. That's why there's a lifted chest in pranayama. There's all sorts of things. So, like if you're seated in a chair doing pranayama, what's your relationship to the back of the chair? Like if you're laying down in pranayama, how do you make sure? Like if you lay just flat in pranayama, why would there be a bolster under your back? Well, if you lay flat, you're gonna make your breath work too hard with too much will because you're gonna try to make a big breath and it's gonna go not equally into your body. Those last two classes were remarkably deep and important. So I review them again because because it should never get old, right? It should never get old because there's a lot. And I liked some of the things that happened when I talked too much. I talked a lot because I didn't want you to do too much direct breathing for too long because pranayama more than anything should be respected, right? It's very powerful for your nervous system. And people would get impatient and they'd want to move. This is how Angelique's take on it of the class started was like, why would you move a little bit to prepare for breath? But is moving a little bit and waking up your body to more presence, is that the same as like doing pranayama after a whole class? Right? There's a whole universe between those two. How might you prepare your spine for pranayama? Why would shavasana often be what's taught before really focused pranayama? These were all things that were thought about and covered, and I could go on and on and on, right? What's the relationship of your ceasing, of the pauses, the retention part of your normal breath cycle? How is that part of your breathing? How does your mind not get scared by the ceasing that's present in your being at all times? How come mind does have a hard time integrating with the flow of your breath? Are you grateful that breathing is an unconscious mechanism? You should be. Remember, I see Jennifer on the screen with Lita, and remember when we got Jennifer to straighten out a little bit, how you could just tell even through the screen that her body actually, the breath got way easier, right? And I asked you, like, what does that mean for all of you? What things can you do to actually have your breath follow the effortless effort that allows your whole body to breathe? Is this ringing a bell for anybody that was there? Yeah. I'd like extra money for that recap, right? The price goes up. The price goes up from 0 to 0. All right. So why would I? So the thing that was not so good about those classes is that I made it seem so complicated and mystical a little bit that you forget that your body already knows how to breathe. And it intimidates you about the landscape a little bit, but you shouldn't. The default is that it's an unconscious process. And the mind tends to interrupt the natural flow of life. That's its superpower. Right? All right. Doesn't mean that's a bad thing. It means you get to put your toe in a different existential river with your mind. But it doesn't quite know how to go into the things that keep you alive and sustaining. And it does it by being kind of asleep in relationship to breath. But when you wake up both sides of it, it's challenging and it's rewarding. All right. Start to feel more rather than less. Notice your exhalation for a little bit, just like move a little bit before you center, not the whole stretchy stretch, but you're not trying to wake too much up. But what is it allows you? So lately I've been trying to feel my ears and the air on my ears as a way to feel my scalp. You should be playing. Your exploration of yoga should be playful. And once you start paying attention to the sensation in your ears, you kind of feel a little bit like Dumbo. And then you go, wait, that's an invitation to feel my whole scalp? Wait, I have a hard time feeling the air on my scalp from above, but I can get it tingle from the inside to out. And that especially happens when I start to feel my ear and loosen my jaw, right? Wait, all of a sudden my head's in space? Are you kidding me? That's so weird. That's freaking weird. And then what happens if I slightly lift my chest in relationship to feeling my Dumbo ears? And then when I inhale, and I'm going to do it through my mouth this time, because when I do it through my mouth a couple times, somehow it makes me feel the air on my ears better, as opposed to when I breathe through my nose. What the hell's going on here? I'm just observing. I'm just doing little changes, becoming my own teacher. On this next exhalation, I want you to drop your shoulder blades and lift your sternum a little bit. And then I want you to spread the space between your shoulder blades and spread across your sacrum and feel each heel on the floor. I remember one of the times it was a really important instruction for me in centering when Joe said, bring alert stillness to your kidneys. Actually, it wasn't. It was a body worker that said that. I realized it in yoga poses then. What? Alert stillness to the mid back, a little bit below the mid back on each side. What does that do to a sense of elongation in your spine? How does it make you want to lift the front side of your chest? Alert stillness on the back. Does it make you want to drop your shoulder blades a little bit? Does a whole bunch of things start cascading at once? It does on the subtle body. There's a lot of fear in the kidneys, supposedly. That's interesting. What happens when I bring alert stillness to my kidneys? I feel stronger. What about you? I feel like I'm more in charge, right? But wait, I still want to feel my Dumbo ears, lips together, teeth slightly apart, front of my body balanced with the back of my body. The feeling of heaviness in my bones. My bones are really tired in general. Whew, but maybe the fatigue is a sense of nourishment. If I could just keep my Dumbo ears. If you want to, bring your hands into prayer, but don't interrupt too much if you do. Close your eyes from top to bottom. It's time to prepare to do yoga. with an alert spine, with the air touching your scalp and your ears, with your sternum lifted, with your legs grounded, with your bones here, skin felt. Good. And then release, sternum up towards your chin, chin down over your sternum. Asking each time, why would this be one of the three major energetic movements that people that know a lot more than you wonder about? And they sit like this. Keep asking yourself, and then notice is there a more activated alert stillness in your kidney when you lift your chin and drop your sternum? Your spine is more alert. Your rib cage becomes more a part of your spine. There's a stability in your rib cage around your spine. So when you breathe and the lungs expand, maybe it enters more of you. But if you grip too hard to lift your sternum and drop your chin and crab, you block it. What's the balance? What are you capable of? Nobody can judge how well you're balancing the lift in your chest right now. Well, I can kind of a little bit. So can teachers, but it's up to you. It's your secret. Whether you stay patient here, whether you're waiting for the next words, it's up to you. Good. And then release. So raise your hand if you know which nostril you typically breathe better in and out of. Do you know? Do you know that it changes some too? How about which lung receives more, especially if you have any curve in your back? Do you know which lung receives more air? Yeah. Huh. So just for a second, whichever lung you think today isn't getting as much inhale and exhale, try to balance it out between your two lungs and try to do it like your nostril, like your lung is connected to your nostril. So your left nostril is connected to your left lung. And they're both great big nostrils. And see, without forcing it like a machete, if you have scoliosis, see if you can cajole more air to go into the lung that doesn't get as much. Be gentle and be kind. Cajole it. And as you extend your spine on exhalation, do you do that evenly? My left lung that doesn't take as much, energy tends to drop the air faster than my right lung. So a couple breaths here. I'm going to try to be more aware of my left lung, which I'm finding right now in this moment. If I feel the back of my left eye a little bit more, my left sitting bone, my left foot, I can get, so find what works for you to balance it out. Good. And then release. And so I guarantee you that if you're if you're doing it when you're sitting still, when you start doing poses, you're breathing into the lungs unequally even more. So when the mind starts to get more engaged with the body, it falls into old patterns, right? Patterns it knows, right? So, all right, let's move around a little bit, waking up the skin and letting there be that little bit of rhythm in there. For me, it's really important to let there be more buoyancy between the way my sitting bones sit and then my cushion, right? And so I'm bouncing up and down just a little bit, trying to remind myself of certain space that as I sit all day, I don't let reinflate enough. All right. So now I'm gonna pop that up a little bit. Now I'm gonna start to open my spine a little bit, like trying to go over the back of my chair, all these things. Eventually, after all these couple of things, we're gonna do dog pose, right? Just a little bit. So I'm trying to get a sense of my front and my back, right? So when I come forward, when I go back and I hit the back of the chair and I push on my legs and I go up and over and I'm trying to make it sensual. I'm not trying to make it be like, how far can I go? Right? I'm more trying to go, how much can I feel? Right? Has my chest been open enough or have I been thinking too much? I can tell you, I wrote all weekend. I've been thinking too much, right? For sure. There is no doubt. There's a price for being lost in words. It's an energetic price, right? It's a D. I'm spreading my legs right now. I'm taking them off the pedals, right? Words exact a toll. So does social interaction. So does loneliness, right? So does isolation. They all exact prices, right? So I'm taking my legs wide and I'm moving back and forth again. I'm wanting to feel the changes in gravity and register them in my body the way I was registering my breath into my lungs. I'm trying to watch. I'm trying to feel, right? I'm not just moving to throw it away. I'm moving to wake up. And it's my mind that needs to be, right? Not my body so much. My mind needs to wake to my body, right? Because without input, my mind only goes off of objects. It only goes off of changes. So that line still haunts me that I heard in 2002, 2001. Gita Iyengar say, and I'm going off to the side again, I'm just trying to keep moving gravity a little bit. She said, a conflicted mind is knowable. A calm mind is unknowable. Huh. So you know how sometimes when you think that you're not doing a pose unless it kind of hurts a little bit, you get right up to the edge of pain, right? You kind of push it a little bit hard. You know what I'm talking about? Does anyone do that ever? You don't think you're really working until it hurts a little bit? That would be the conflict. That's your mind not knowing what's going on. So you create some conflict and some tension. So it helps ground the mind. And then you get to test yourself against the limit and push into the limit. This is a smart technique, except it's violent. Hands together. Violence is necessary sometimes, right? Especially we always, when you live with disability, you're always having to be in opposition to your body, right? So I'm pressing the heel of my hands together because I've been trying to tell you, at least I find earth as soon as I do that, right? And then I'm watching my breathing. I'm bringing my hands together. You could do this with your elbows. So like if you can't bring your hands together equally, then feel the skin on your elbows as they're leaning on the table. And then I'm talking like I'm teaching Dave in my head right now, right? So right. So he's got the heel of his hands, but you could do it with how the skin feels on the elbow on the table. You could do it a whole bunch of ways, right? But I want you to spread the skin on your palms, move whatever it is. And I want you to mirror the center of your chest at the same time. I want your center of your chest to open. Now I want you to see if you can breathe equally into each nostril and into each lung. Feel each sitting bone. Feel the bottoms of each foot. So you got extra awareness of the midline. There's alert stillness in your kidneys. You're feeling equally through your whole body. Now you're inhaling and trying to make it equal and make it conjoined with the sensation of symmetry that you've worked for in the poses or in the movement so far. Good. And then release. Stretch your arms down by your sides, right? So practicing in the ether for a second, I want you to extend down below your fingertips. What? So how would you go beyond your fingertips down to the floor, by the way? What would you do? Are you seeing the floor with your third eye? I hope not. Third eyes don't see, right? So why are they called an eye? What the hell? So how do you are you reaching for the floor? Or are you, in order to touch the floor, do you bring your tricep into the humerus bone, lift the sternum, spread the skin on the palms, and extend down to the floor from inside through your body continuously down to the floor. But in order to keep that continuous, you're going to have to extend your spine and you're going to have to fricking breathe. What the hell is going on here? You see the possibility, you start to feel the sensation. Now, breath into through each nostril, into each lung, each sitting bone, each foot on the floor. Good. And then release. Does anybody raise your hand if when you did that, that's just like a version of Tadasana, basically. But when I do all that and try to feel all that, does anyone struggle to take as deep an inhalation? Raise your hand if that starts to happen. Yeah, what the hell? So when I act through my body, my breath gets more constricted. He thinks that he chews on his nails and thinks, what the hell? What the hell does that mean? It's a good thing to practice. Try it again. Try to do all that extra awareness, but do it a little softer. And I don't mean with less effort. I mean with do it with more awareness of your skin, right? Do it, feel all the things that we're doing, but try to keep your diaphragm soft. Because if you're having trouble breathing when you're in a straight line, can you imagine when we start doing sitting, standing poses? It's going to get rough. Except maybe it's going to get easier. Huh. Damn it, I'm having a hard time. I'm going beyond my fingertips. I better go beyond the top of my head too, right? But what about my Dumbo ears? What about my scalp as I try to grip my tricep into my humerus bone, lift my sternum? Can I keep my skin awake? Now, with all that awareness, notice how hard it is to have a breath. Huh. Especially for me because I'm paralyzed in my abdomen. So I have a hard time starting the breath. And then I have a hard time getting the top of my inhalation to keep expanding. But your body might be different. I don't know. Good. And then release, right? Not everyone has paralyzed abdominal muscles. Okay. Take your legs wide. Standing poses. Widen the base. We're trying to notice that. Remember, I was saying in one of the pranayama classes that there's different breathing for different types of poses. So I'm just going to take a little bit of time to register, right? The difference that happens when my knees are farther apart, right? But what I like it is when I lean forward. So I'm grabbing my foot pedals, right? So I'm grab on your chair seat, and I lean forward. I like what that does to my inhalation. Except at the top, I have a hard time. I get pretty forceful near the top. Got to work on that. Good. And then I'm going to go behind the balance point back here. Not doing a back bend yet, but I'm noticing what happens in my breath here. I have a harder time feeling like the inhalation is starting from any sense of grounding, but that's probably my paralysis. So as I'm doing it this way, I'm going to try to broaden across my collarbones, open the back of my sternum, find my sitting bones, and try to get more mileage out of the inhalation that I can take. Good, and then release them, lean forward again. Now, what's weird is because I've done this enough, I already know my breath is going to get better if I lean off to one side. Now, what the hell? Why would this be the case? So I'm just taking a couple of breaths here, right? I think it's because my rib cage feels freer. It's not a huge difference, but it's a difference. I'm going to go the other way. And notice I'm trying to get my scoliosis. So that's me falling into my scoliosis. When I lean over, I'm trying to get my spine more aligned so my kidneys can be more alert and more still. I feel freedom in my rib cage. That's interesting. Back to center, back to the other way. Notice I'm doing all these things to ground, right? I don't even know how I'm doing it. I'm pushing here. I'm pushing here. I'm naturally heading towards triangle pose. Trikonasana, I must have been here before. I must know that making my spine more alert and more grounded when I'm off alignment is a good thing for my breath. Good. And then I'm going to go the other way. So now I'm being more aware of the grounding sensation that is there, and it makes my breath better. Whatever quantity of breath you're taking is enough. What we're trying to do is get more mileage out of the amount of oxygen you're already taking in. Back to the first side. Oh, I feel like I might want to start jumping here, right? Spring into it. Find my breath after I've started the springing of my spine. And then make sure my breath touches my legs. Good. Go on the other. I'm going to spring in this way too. And I fly in to the pose more. And breathe. Ooh, I forgot my Dumbo ears. Forgot my scalp. That's okay. I can improve things once I'm in a pose, right? And then I'm going to bring my legs together. And I'm going to try to observe the energetic difference. I'm bringing my knees together more like Tadasana. And I'm making this corridor have more structure and definition. So now that feeds my breath differently. Oh boy, I like that exhalation. I was holding more tension than I thought when I was moving like that. I felt free, but there was something that wasn't quite as grounded. That's okay. And then I'm going to remember to bring the center of my chest skyward. So I'm just going to quick remind my spine. Yeah, I forgot to do dog pose. I'm a terrible teacher. Right. And I'm going this way to remember. And then I'm going to come forward, find more earth, activate more earth into my spine. Right? By lifting my sternum more like cobra pose or upward facing dog. And I'm just noticing the difference about how my breath feels between here, right? And I'm not up here. Don't take a deep breath. I mean, when you're in a back bend, don't take a deep breath. Let your breath be natural. And then come forward and watch the changes. Watch the advantages and disadvantages that start to occur as you come into upward facing dog. Things change. All right. Feel both different kinds of breath and sit in neutral. But I'm using balance here. I'm using my forearms on my legs to help me. I'm a little bit forward from neutral, but I want to have grounding so I can feel the front and back of my body with the earth and still feel the sky, the openness of breathing when I was back bending. And I'm going to try to bring all of that to Tadasana. It's getting better for me. I wonder about you. If I compare this one to the one I did before this all started, I feel like my breath is getting more traction. All right. Okay. Back to the legs wide. So now, remember that most of yoga started, they think, with seated poses, right? It wasn't all this flailing of limbs, right? All these changes of gravity. So remember this springing feeling that somehow if I can get my spine elongated, alert stillness in my kidneys, my dumbbell ears, my scalp in the pose, the earth of leaning over. Now I'm going to satiate my mind's sense of accomplishment and take my arm up. But I want you to notice what's lost, what's gained, and how your breath changed. It's not a permanent loss. In fact, there's some gain here too. Good, and then release. Check back into center. Go the other way. Here's the grounded part, the spinal part now. Here's the more part. God, this kind of makes me happy. No wonder the yogis started doing asana, right? There's something about it that's kind of rewarding, for God's sakes. Good, and then release. Back in the middle. Back with your legs together. Back to the earth. Spine to the sky. Back to neutral. Now, I sacrifice a lot when I stretch my arms down because I can feel my spine compress. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to do it. But the question is, how do I improve? I could try harder to lift my chest and work harder, or I could try to improve my pose with the spaciousness of what the sequence has been. And then breathe into each nostril, into each lung, into each sitting bone, and into each heel without pushing my breath. Suddenly, my inhalation, especially near the top, for me, the top of my inhalation is getting more graceful because my ribs are more open. Good, and then release. Legs wide again. Over, up. Now, take your, okay, what I want to have happen is I want your arm hand to go farther back, but don't do it. Do it leading from the bottom rib, right? So arm's gonna go farther back, but I want you to put your awareness here in this leg and then take the arm back. In other words, stay grounded. Don't just let your mind take the easy way out. Good, and then release. I should have done it without doing this first, so you could feel the difference. Here I'm over, I'm getting everything, all the stuff we've been working on. The arm goes up. I'm gonna take it farther back, but I want to lead from the bottom rib and the bottom leg and elongate my spine as my arm goes back. Feel your dumbbell ears, feel your scalp, feel your sitting bones. Good, and then release. Bring your legs back together. Feel. Need to lift up a little bit. I don't know if you do, but I do. Right? Because I got too much pressure and collapse, right? All right, so now we're going to think about, so let's do the back bend again. And ask yourself, without taking a deep breath, how do you take your best breath? Like, what's your best breath when you're in a back bend? Like, what are the variables you want in it? If you have more of your body in when you're breathing in asana, you're going to be less apt to do violence, right? And then come back into neutral. And notice one difference. There's a lot of differences. But when I'm forward a little bit and in neutral more, my breath can start from lower. There's a slight easier access to a slight lower abdominal lock that grounds the inhalation as it starts. Notice what happens when you're back bending a little bit, right? Up and over. It's harder to start the inhalation from lower, right? And that doesn't mean you should try to. It means that you should modulate your breath differently when you don't have the earth with you as much. And then come back to center. The lack of earth should change the amount of breath you take. All right, so how is a twist going to be different? Right? So I'm going to come forward and I'm just going to do, we could start the thing about kind of the simple twists we usually do, right? Asana 3 kind of variation. It's, hand outside, hand behind, right? The tendency is that your breath, at least mine, ends up getting more centered up here, right? So it's a little bit like a back bend. So I want to make sure when I inhale that I go down through my sitting bones, right? So I get more of the earth in there. And then on the exhale, as I'm making space, I'm turning. So it's usually an inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. But in order to lift up, I want you to go down on your inhalation slightly. Let your chest lift on inhalation. And then exhale. And on this next breath cycle, I don't want you to physically revolve anymore, but I want you to inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve without cranking on your twist. Now, especially I'm breathing like this, slightly more of a jawi breath on exhalation helps. What? What you talking about, Willis? And when I exhale like that, I can feel the spaces between my shoulder blades more, which lifts the front of my chest. Which now my next inhalation, see, now I'm really struggling to keep my breath even. So I shouldn't. One lung is going to get more breath than the other. Okay. Good. And then come on back to center. The good news is if you practice these poses 20,000 times, you don't have to be aware of your breath like this. Bad news is if you don't practice it 20,000 times, you leave a lot of money on the table, right? Go the other way. I almost did this again. You can see why, right? You can see why that would get your rib cage more open, right? Yeah. See why the BKS anger wants you to stretch up before you turn. So now I'm here, very different from side to side. This twist on me because of my scoliosis is like very different from side to side. I don't know, maybe it feels the same to you on your body, but not for me. So my breath has to change again here. The goal is not to make my breath on this side feel like my breath on the other side. The goal is to make the best breath on this side, knowing what I know about breathing. Just wish someone could push me right there the whole time I was in this pose, right? It would help my breath. It would help my back hip, right? So knowing that pressure on my rib cage here would help my pose, I'm going to try to keep my mind more in the back hip, right? I'm not going to, so I'm going to inhale and I'm going to create space. I'm going to try to, as I separate between my shoulder blades, I'm going to be aware of my back hip. And then exhale, revolve. Oh, there's not as much joy for me on this side. Got to be careful not to use too much will on this side. I don't know what's true for you. Just be a yogi. Good, and then release. I didn't hold that side as long because that's my body telling me what to do. If you feel like you want to hold that longer, do that, right? I'm going to come forward on my table here, and I'm putting my forearms on my table, and I'm making sure that my forearms stay down and my side body stays long. And as I make my side body long and lift up to my armpits, I hit down with my sitting bones. What? Yeah, I know all these tricks. Done a lot of yoga. Now I watch my breath in this rib cage position. So I'm leaning forward. I've got conditions of safety. I've got gravity showing me the earth. I'm hitting down. I'm lengthening up my side body to my armpits. I'm hitting down with my sitting bones. I'm going to lift under my collarbones, drop my shoulder blades a little bit, spread them. And then I'm going to watch if I still breathe more into my right lung rather than my left, whichever it is on you. And I'm going to try to equalize it a little bit, just a little bit. I'm not going to freak out if I can't do it. Just going to know that that's the direction I want to go. Good. And then release. So now we're going to change hand positions and do more of a dog pose. Oh dear. So if I'm doing dog pose just by leaning on my forearms, that's fine too. In fact, that's kind of easier for what we've been doing for me, right? I'm going to do this. And I'm going to watch my breath again and let my inhalation open my rib cage. But of course, it goes into me asymmetrically, right? So I'm going to try it for me again. It's more going into my right lung and my right side of my diaphragm's working a little bit too hard. So I'm going to try to adjust it using dog pose as my measure. I'm going to bring more awareness on my body to my left sitting bone in my left hand. I'm going to try to elongate my side body, lift on the underside of my arms towards the ceiling, but press down through my thumbs, right? And I'm going to try to breathe evenly into my body using dog pose as the guides, the forms from which my breath follows. Poses can help your breath. It's not always adjusting your breath to your poses. Good, and then release. Come forward again. Find the place between neutral and too far forward. Find the place where you feel good. Add just a little bit of yogic integrity to whatever position feels good. Don't screw it up, though. Don't make it not feel good. Just add. Add a little bit of what maybe woke up. And then take a few breaths. See if it doesn't touch more places. For me, at least, instead of dissipation on exhalation, I'm feeling lighter as I approach the end of my exhalation. I can kind of tell that my yoga practice wasn't a waste. Something happened. Good. Come on back. One of the things I'm trying to get across to you in another sense from the first two classes is that your body helps you breathe, right? We grab too fast when we just grab inhalation and exhalation. That's the thing the mind thinks it controls, right? But every cell breathes. And guess what? You know what song I listened to this morning? Once in a Lifetime by the Talking Heads. And this thing about every cell breathes, that's the same as it ever was. That was always true. Except now all of a sudden I can actually, my mind actually is like more tuned to it. Something's changed where I'm realizing that something else was going on here. And my mind's not racing to feel it. My mind is calm, unknowable, because I can't feel my judgments, but I can feel that there's more. And it's the same as it ever was. All right, let your chair hold you up. Start to surrender. Self-realization is tricky. Try to do so much of it with our heads. Such a bummer. Go inward, soften the organs of perception. There's a place where the base of your tongue and the inner ears and the back of your eyes all draw lines to a center place in the center of your skull, in the center of your head. Soften the place where those things intersect, and then let it cascade out. Let your chair hold you up. From earth to air, from fire to ether, stay fluid and float. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Huh? Thank your body. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation, slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes. Close them again if you want to. And then open them again. Maybe for the whole week. It's up to you. All right, everybody. I was thinking, what was I thinking right just a second ago? Oh, I forgot something about breathing. Yeah. Do you think Prana cares if you're misaligned? I wonder. So one of the images in in uh, in the book I'm writing is that maybe prana fills in structure or form like your body. Maybe it fills it in the way the earth fills water into a well, right? So, I tend to end up without meaning to thinking about prana and my breath bringing breath through me more like a wave, right? Like it comes through me and then comes out of me, and that's helpful. That's a helpful image sometimes. But what if it's filling in from every direction? So when you're misaligned, there's some places that it's not quite getting the same way. It's not quite, it's kind of stuck out of some places. And it's not quite. And then your breath and your will comes in, your mind comes in and tries to take a deeper inhalation and tries to force it. But really, if you can like shift your body a little bit, then maybe it comes in evenly more, right? For you to experience and get nourished by. I know that I lose a lot of prana because of my scoliosis. I leak this way all the time, right? So I know I'm an energetic wasting pot of leaking, right? And I can't fix it all the time. But damn, this feels good sometimes where I just make sure my container, make sure the riverbanks stay in me instead of them leaking from my spine here, right? It feels good when I get my body to be the well, not just